So today I am going to be talking about Culinary Class War. And this wasn't really supposed to be the video that I was supposed to make for this week, but I got some stuff about it on my For You page. I actually didn't watch it while it was airing, but after the finale finished, I just kept getting like TikToks about it, and then I just got convinced to watch, especially after the Netflix content showed up on my page, and one of them is quite attractive. So yeah, I'm not gonna lie, that's probably the entire reason I watched it, even though that person is not my favorite cast member actually. So the show is a Netflix original with 12 one-hour long episodes. It is a culinary class war among 100 contenders where an 80 underdog black spoon cooks challenge 20 white spoon star chefs, fiercely competing to become the best in Korea. And the title is obviously Culinary Class Wars, but the original Korean title is 흑백 요리사, which means black white chefs. So it's like the black spoon, white spoon concept. And to get a little bit into that, the black spoons are basically people who are newcomers in the cooking industry that don't have as much as renown. And then there are 20 white spoons, which are experienced chefs who are already really renowned in the industry, have accomplished a lot of great things. Oh, and then one tiny comment. I just wanted to mention that I am wearing a white shirt because I was team white spoon. You would think that they're all fine dining, and between fine dining and like a home cooked meal, I'm 100% on a home cooked meal. I just don't think I would appreciate fine dining. My taste buds are not that sensitive in the grand scheme of things. I think food should be accessible and not just like a treat. So that's my personal opinion. And then originally I thought the white spoons were going to be very pretentious, but ultimately they're people that have worked so many years on their craft. And when you just have a skill, I think it can just be really hurtful sometimes when you've worked years on a skill and someone just comes out of nowhere and just beats you at it, because that is life. But yeah, I'm a big believer of that hard work should pay off. So that's why I am a very big team white spoon person. That is why it is the fit for today. Yeah. And for our judges, we have two, and they're going to be Baek Jong-won and An Sung-jae. So for Baek Jong-won, yeah, this man's everywhere. He owns so many different successful restaurant businesses. He also has his own like cooking stuff. Like he has like his own jjajangmyeon paste. Yeah, he like owns a lot of stuff in the restaurant industry, probably the most successful dude. And he's very famous for being like a down-to-earth, very cheap, affordable cost of food, basically. This is in contrast to An Sung-jae, who is the only Korean person with 3 Michelin stars. So yeah, he's all about fine dining. And so the two really contrast with Baek Jong-won being the more down-to-earth, home-cooked meals. His entire thing is about taste, whereas An Sung-jae is like thinks a lot about intention and technique. So they're very different judges, but both very, very reputable people. So now I'm just going to run through the rounds. So in the first round, it is the Black Spoon Elimination Challenge. So the show actually starts out with 80 black spoons. So these are all newcomers in the industry. You've got a mix of all sorts of people that specialize in all sorts of cuisines. And so basically, I would think Show Me the Money if you've ever seen it. It's just all 80 people out there with their little cooking stations, and basically they like hit the bell when they're done making their food. There's 80 of them total, and 20 get selected to move on, 20 to match the white spoons, you know? And so yeah, the white spoons are actually just watching over this entire process, and within the 80, they're actually divided in half. So Baek Jong-won is evaluating half, which is 40, and An Sung-jae is evaluating the other half, which is 40. They either pass or fail them, and another option is to put them on hold. So in case they don't fill up the 20 spots, then they will take from people on the hold. I originally thought that wasn't going to happen. I thought it was going to be the first 20 to just pass, but because An Sung-jae is so picky, it ended up being less than 20, so they did have to choose from the people on hold. And then so by the end of it, they had 16 people out of the 80 selected, and then they had to choose the rest from on hold. Honestly, the only person that put anyone on hold was An Sung-jae. So yeah, these 4 contestants that did get saved were placed on hold by An Sung-jae. So the first one that got accepted and survived, I guess, is Napoli Mafia. He got placed on hold for adding useless flower decorations to his food, although it was very tasty. And An Sung-jae just really hates useless things in food.
접시 위에 예쁘게 보이려고 쓰잘데기 없는 걸 놓는 걸 굉장히 싫어해요. 많은 셰프님들께서는 뭐 다를 수도 있어요. 근데 그거는 뭐 어쩔 수 없고 아무 맛도 없고 아무 이유도 없고 오로지 그냥 뭔가를 더 얻기 위해서 그냥 원진 그런 행위를 하셨더라고요.
And next is Cooking Maniac. He got placed on hold because his fish was just barely under-seasoned, and An Sung-jae is very particular about seasoning.
선식이 없었어요. 너무 맛있었어요. 그래서 이거 붙는다 하고 생각을 했는데 그 생선을 먹었을 때 생선의 간이 조금 모자라더라고요. 사실 근데 이게 너무 미세한 거였어요. 그러면은 다른 분들 생각도 구입을 했을 때 제 기준이 좀 확실했거든요.
And then Chef Spark, he got placed on hold by An because there was a fish bone. This was pretty valid. No matter how tasty your food, if you got a fish bone, I feel like that's pretty fair.
먹고 다른 것도 먹고 하는데 뼈 하나가 입에서 물었어요. 아, 파스타는 너무 맛있는데 와 이거 맛있다 막 이런 머릿속으로 이거 완전 고다 하는데 막 입에서 뼈가 계속 남아서.
And then the last one is Master of School Meals, which is really surprising. So basically it's this lady that makes cafeteria lunches for school children. So obviously not very fine dining-esque, even though the rest of them are a little bit closer to that kind of style. And so she got placed on hold because An Sung-jae wasn't sure if he was letting his emotions get involved, because he said that it felt like his childhood school lunches, and he wasn't sure if that emotion was the reason that he chose it.
아이들에게 사랑으로 급식을 만드시는 분이 약간 뭉클한 거예요. 너무 감동이더라고요. 오류를 한 거는 혹시 제가 그냥 감정에 몰입이 돼서 잘못 판단하지 않을까?
Baek Jong-won actually tries everyone that's on hold so that he can also evaluate. So yeah, they decided to let Master of School Meals pass. So in round 2, this is going to be black spoons versus white spoons. It's a one-on-one match and obviously elimination. So 10 will survive. So yeah, they all match up and then they go to a fridge with an ingredient that both of them must work on. So both of them have to make a dish with the same ingredient. And again, this is judged by An Sung-jae and Baek Jong-won. And this round is kind of funny because they are completely blindfolded, not able to look at the dish. Yeah, they're just sitting in a room blindfolded getting feed by these two men. So pretty funny. This series was actually pretty surprisingly funny. And yeah, they don't know what it is, and no explanations, and they don't even know who's cooking it. So yeah, this round passes by. There's 10 winners, but then both judges get one pass to save someone that lost in their one-on-one. Chung-won chose the goddess of Chinese cuisine.
중식 대신이다.
And yeah, she went against a white spoon that did Chinese. It's also female, does Chinese cooking, whatever. And then An Sung-jae saved comic book chef.
국수죠. 만취남입니다.
Which actually surprised me. I really wasn't expecting that, especially from An Sung-jae, who I feel like is into the more fine dining stuff. But yeah, he's a black spoon. Then it actually ended up being even because then they had an even number of black and white spoons again. So then in round 3, it was Team Black versus Team White spoons. But even within this, there was another division of Team Meat versus Team Seafood. So there was actually a total of 4 teams. So it was actually just like 2 rounds of black versus white spoons. And each team had 200 minutes to make food for 98 audience members and the 2 judges. And basically all 100 would just vote for whoever did better. This is a difficult challenge because they have to make 100 portions and they have to make everything taste good, obviously, or else they're gonna like lose out. So with Team Meat, only 1 team survives. Within Team Seafood, only 1 team survives. And then the entire team that like wins, it all survives. I think I kind of said that earlier, but whatever. And then from the losing team, they saved a couple of people. One important note about this round is that the leadership was really what carried a team to victory. So for Team Meat, Triple Star was the chef that was like the leader, and he really helped the team like get victory because the leader was really important for determining the direction, because I think a lot of it had to do with the planning versus just the execution, because obviously there's a lot of chefs who all know how to cook. It's kind of just being able to put that together and like making something work. For the meat round, Team Black Spoon won, and then for the seafood round, Team White Spoon won, and Team White Spoon was led by Choi Hyun-suk, and he just did a really good job leading the seafood team, the seafood White Spoon team. And also one thing to note is that with White Spoons, they are super renowned, so it was there was a lot of clash between everyone's different opinions, and they're all very successful, so they all do have quite some, I guess, power when deciding what to do. But also, since they're also older on this side, they are very stubborn in their ways. So the losing White Spoon team, which was the team Meat White Spoon and Team Seafood Black Spoons, all went into this consolation match. And this one, I really thought it was kind of fun. It was using convenience store ingredients to make a dish. They had 40 minutes, and out of 10 contestants, 3 were selected to move on. So Napoli Mafia, who was a black spoon, won first overwhelmingly by making a chestnut tiramisu. This guy was actually kind of funny because he literally just chilled. He just chilled for the 40 minutes and was like, I already know I'm going to win this because man's constantly at the convenience store, loves making convenience store recipes, I guess. So yeah, he just chilled, and then he submitted his thing very last, and it was a dessert, obviously. And yeah, it was like really fire. He got first by a lot. And then in second place was Chung Ji-sun. She's the white spoon. She is the queen of dim sum, makes Chinese food, specializes in that. And she made a yopomye out of ramen. If I'm being honest, I'm Chinese and I don't really know what yopomye is, but cool. And then lastly was Cooking Maniac. He is a black spoon, and he made a pad thai out of ramen. It was like this food that he makes while drunk, and he combined a lot of different things in it. And honestly, that seemed kind of tasty, so I might try making that myself. Continuing on, we are at round 4, which is the restaurant mission, and this is my favorite mission. So with the so basically there were 12 that moved on from the black versus white spoon team match, and then they added 3, so we have 15 left. And so then they were divided into 3 teams of 5 and told to come up with a menu item and designated prices for guests that will come into this food court-ish setting. And the winner is determined by whoever sells the most. And an important note about this, it is not about profit. It is only about sales. And the team leaders were selected through a survey of who the contestants thought would win. In first place was Triple Star, getting 11 out of 15 votes, and this guy's a black spoon. Next was Choi Hyun-suk, who is a white spoon. I don't think they revealed how many votes he got, but like at most it's probably like 3. And so lastly was Edward Lee, who is a white spoon, and if Choi Hyun-suk got 3, then that means Edward Lee got 1, because otherwise it would be 2 and 2, and that wouldn't make Choi Hyun-suk get more votes. Anyways, they just self-assigned teams, and so for the restaurants they decided to go with, Choi Hyun-suk decided to go for extravagant, and he really was so smart in this round, and he was just thinking about what kind of restaurant would do best in the situation, and since people were forced to come spend money, he decided to make his stuff super expensive and not profitable at all, because ultimately it was not about net profit. It was just about sales.
가격대가 되게 중요할 거거든요. 이렇게 생각하시면 돼요. 특수한 상권, 여기 엄청 특수한 상권이에요. 시스템이 크게 보이는데 여기 정작 오는 사람들은 돈을 주기 때문에 바깥으로 10만 원, 20만 원 쓸 수 있는 거라고 보시면 될 것 같아요. 그렇죠?
So yeah, he was basically buying some really expensive stuff and selling it for affordable price, but obviously still really expensive. And yeah, it's a one-time special thing for the show, because in real life they wouldn't be able to sell it like that. In real life nobody would buy it either, you know. But since the customers come to spend money, there's a good chance they would want to try this within other things. They called themselves the Gazillionaire's Exorbitant Diner.
첫 번째 저희 메뉴는 트러플 금가스입니다. 두 번째 요리는 랍스타 마라크림 짬뽕입니다. 세 번째는 캐비어 알밥 천국입니다. 비벼 드시지 마시고 처음에 깊숙이 떠서 캐비어와 밥을 드시고 여기 이모카세 명장님의 구운 김과 함께 싸서 드시면 정말 별미입니다.
And yeah, again, Choi Hyun-suk admitted to this being a terrible idea in the real world, but he decided to go with it for the show. Next is Triple Star's team, called the Triple Chinese Restaurant, and they made some pretty common dishes at some pretty common prices.
그래서 첫 번째 메뉴는 마라크림.
저기 딤섬 여왕 계시잖아요. 지금 정자주
두 번째는 한우 2 플러스로 만든 바싹 불고기를 바오건처럼 드시는 메뉴입니다. 세 번째는 고추장, 버터, 감자, 육기와 로스치킨, 그리고 열무 피클인데요.
And then Edward Lee's team is called Mr. Jang, and their concept is making the Jang trio, which is basically bean paste, red pepper paste, and soy sauce. And basically their idea was to make these very these are very important Korean ingredients. It's used in a lot of Korean cooking, and so Edward Lee wanted to make it more accessible to Western palates, so they basically just went for fusion.
첫 번째로 장아저씨 쌈장 파스타 좀 준비해봤습니다. 두 번째로는 이제 여러분들 모두가 좋아하시는 스테이크 좀 캐비아 모듬장 준비해봤습니다.
And then, last minute, the production team decides to throw in something random, and they basically make every single team kick off one member. The people kicked off form their own restaurant. So ultimately, An Yun-sung is a white spoon. He gets voted off Choi Hyun-suk's team. And then for the other 2, self-made chef and comic book chef volunteered to leave from Team Triple Star and Team Mr. Chang. They just decided to do it on their own, and then they call their restaurant the restaurant that TV crews line up for, with each chef making their signature dish.
첫 번째 요리로 김대중 대통령부터 시그니처 메뉴는 옛날 동파육이라고 해서요.
저의 오늘의 메뉴는 요리랑 비룡
So the guests ended up turning to be 20 mukbangers, making Team Extravagance Plan a super good one, because obviously mukbangs are not your average Joe. They eat a lot, and they are, obviously influencers, so they're down to try this pretty expensive food. And with that, Team Triple Stars isn't that amazing because they made some pretty common dishes. And why would you decide to eat some common dishes if you go on the special show? You know, you can just go outside and eat it. So yeah, but they honestly got saved because Chung In-sun is the queen of dim sum, and the mukbangers, I guess Chung In-sun just has a reputation. So obviously the mukbangers want to try her dim sum, and so her dim sum sold very, very well. By the end of this round, it is no surprise that the extravagant diner won. They won first place with 4,774,000 won in sales. Next was actually Triple Star. They got really lucky with Chung In-sun, who made all the dim sum. They had 2,220,000 won, which is obviously less than half of what first place got. Third was Edward Lee's team, and they fell behind due to issues with the steak texture because Edward Lee mispurchased meat because he's never bought ingredients in Korea. And also isn't like fluent in Korean. And then last, meaning the entire team got eliminated, was the restaurant that TV crews line up for. First place, which is the Team Extravagant Diner, all 4 of them survived. And then the last team again, they all got eliminated. And then Baek Jong-won and An Sung-jae, who did not try any of this food basically, chose 4 people to keep from the middle second and third team. So they chose Chung Ji-sun because she made some very fire dim sum. She had the most sales and they thought she deserved it. Next was Triple Star, who was the team leader of that team because he's just always a great team leader, always taking everyone's opinions into account. We love Triple Star. And next is Napoli Mafia for being a good leader in Mr. Jang team because Edward obviously is struggling with the whole Korean aspect. So Napoli Mafia really stepped up, really took an account to customer preferences and really got things to change up. And then lastly was Edward Lee for just having really great work ethic. He's a very he's good at listening to advice and feedback. And so basically when his steak turned out to be tough, he made the adjustments and decided to make it softer. So yeah, really listening to the people and changing things up when necessary. So next we are out round number 5, and this is the semi-finalist round with 8 people left. So the first mission they had was Cook Your Life, where they cook a dish representing their life, sharing the story of how that dish represents their life, you know? And so this one honestly was such a weird round because how do you rate someone's life story? I will say there's like Auntie Omakase, who is a black spoon, and her story was just super sad, and she got 7th out of 8th place, even though her story was the most touching. It had to do with a bowl of noodles that she used to hate. Basically, her family was wealthy, and then they went poor. Then her mom had to start working, and then she ran a noodle business. And so she was, at a young age, she was obviously very sick of these noodles. But then growing up, she realized that, like, hey, these noodles are, like, what raised us and, like, our family. Oh, so sweet. But basically, yeah, I don't know how it must have tasted, but genuinely, she just had the best story. And I feel like it's crazy to rate someone's story on like how good the food tastes. So it's like this woman's like life story, and they just kind of like, oh, it doesn't taste that good. I thought that was a really weird concept.
그래서 이제 이 국수의 인생 스토리는 저는 되게 먹기 싫었거든요. 학교 다닐 때 그 가난에 대한 그런 이미지인 것 같기도 하고 해서 그게 그렇게 싫었던 것 같기도 해요. 그때 그렇게 하다가 엄마가 갑자기 이제 당뇨 합병증이 오신 거예요. 그래서 양쪽 눈을 수술하게 돼서 그 국수 삶는 걸 배우게 된 거예요. 저도 모르게 안 할 수가 없는 거예요. 막 힘들어하시니까. 장사를 하다가 이제 저도 이제 결혼을 하고 아이를 놓고 자판 뒤에 있는 점포를 하나 사서 확장을 할 수 있게 됐어요. 그래서 이제 그 덕분에 이제 우리 양쪽 부모님들 다 모시고 아들 딸 오다는 거 맛있는 거 사주면서 저도 생계를 유지하게 된 거죠. 국수 장사를 해서 그렇게 제가 먹기 싫었던 국수가 지금은 저한테는 최고의 은인이 된 거죠. 이 국수는 저한테는 정말 기적적이고 운명 같은 국수예요. 왜냐면 이것 때문에 우리 가족 다 행복하게 먹고 살 수 있고 감사한 그런 음식이라고 생각하고 했기 때문에 제 인생 요리를 이걸로 정했습니다.
Because in terms of story, she had the best one by far, but in terms of food, I guess it just wasn't the best. Like, what was she supposed to do? Like, make something else? But that's not authentic to her actual life story, and authenticity was like a big factor that they considered, I guess. Otherwise, you could just make some better tasting food, you know? So weird. Anyways, Napoleon Mafia gets first with a 1-point difference and moves on to the final. This is a slightly funny, iconic moment though, because Choi Hyun-suk in second, he made vongole pasta without garlic.
근데 솔직히 고백을 하면 실수를 했어요. 엄청난 실수를. 나중에 레시피를 되짚어 보니까 마늘을 빼먹었습니다. 봉골레에 마늘을 빼먹는 건 떡볶이에 고춧가루 빼먹는 거랑 똑같은 거거든요. 29년 동안 그렇게 많이 봉골레 해왔는데 한 번도 마늘을 빼먹고 봉골레 한 적이 없는데 하필이면 오늘 저는 분명히 안성재 심사위원이 저랑 취향이 다를 뿐 내가 맞다고 생각했는데 저는 틀리고 안성재 심사위원이 맞았습니다. 마늘을 빼먹다니 미친놈이죠.
And he still ended up in second place, which is so funny. I'm probably going to try making some vongole pasta that he made in a Baek Jong-won video recently. We'll see how good it is. But also, I saw there's so much butter in there, and I don't know if I'm really gonna eat that much butter because that's so heavy, I feel like. It doesn't matter who gets in second place. Napoli Mafia advances to the final rounds, and then we are left with a match to determine the second finalist, and this one is Cooking Hell. So this was an elimination style competition, 6 rounds of 30 minutes, each dish requiring to use a main ingredient, which is tofu. So basically they just kept making tofu dishes, and like the worst tofu dish gets eliminated, and then they do it again and again and again until they get to the final winner. And so what's really sucky is Choi Hyun-suk loses first. He makes a dish and it tastes good, but tofu isn't the main thing, and that was their judging criteria, so he gets eliminated. And then we get to the final 2, who is obviously Triple Star and Edward Lee. contenders for first place, you know? And ultimately, Edward Lee wins because he has the most creative tofu dish ideas, whereas Triple Star, although they were tasty, they weren't necessarily the most creative and was kind of using tofu just to use it. So the final, obviously, is Napoli Mafia, who is a black spoon, and Edward Lee, who is a white spoon. So this final round was make a dish that you would put your name on the line for. And one side note is if the judges do not agree on whose food tasted better, the two just keep making food until they do agree. And funny enough, this ended in one round. But basically, Edward makes a tteokbokki semi-Fredo with a gochujang caramel served with a tame makgeolli, which is a Korean melon flavored rice wine. And basically, his story behind this was that he joined the competition in order to get more in touch with his Korean heritage because he's American. He makes food in the States and he's Korean American. So, yep. And basically his story is that he noticed in Korea they just like really like serving big portions. And so at first to him, he just felt really sorry. Like he just had leftover food. He thought it was a waste. But as he grew up, he learned to appreciate this affection. And so tteokbokki was one meal in particular that he was never able to finish enough of. And so he made this tteokbokki dessert, one as a challenge because he wanted to try out new things and either win big or do something big and lose. So yeah, he made this tteokbokki dessert to commemorate his love for Korea food. I think that is the best way to wrap it up. And on the other hand, Napoli Mafia. So since this one is about staking your name on the line, we get his real name, and he's Kwon Sung-jun. And he makes a Piedmontese styled pistachio crusted lamb rack with a Barolo wine sauce with mushrooms and beet and lamb heart ravioli. I don't know what most of this is. So anyways, his little story was he said that if he's putting his name on the line, it means he's putting his life on the line. So he made a dish that represents his life. Obviously, Napoli Mafia has a lot of like Italian influences. He specializes in pastas. So yeah, that's why he made that. He also used a wine that was made in the year he was born to kind of show again that his like life is on the line. And again, this round ended real quick. The judges both decided on one, and so the winner was
흑수저 권성준입니다. 흑수저 권성준입니다.
he won a 300 million won prize, which in American dollars is like $200,000. So for the cast, I will just be talking about some of my favorites, mainly about the semifinalists because obviously they get the most screen time and they have the biggest presence character in the show. There's really 4 that I really like, so we're going to talk about all of them. These are honestly the people that I thought should have been the semifinalists. I don't know why they only did 2, and even with the 2, I was not happy with one of them. Yeah, but basically I think there just should have been 4 for a semifinal round at some point. And the people that I thought stood up the most were first Chung In-sun. She is a white spoon. I think I mentioned her a lot. She's the queen of dim sum. She's very renowned for her Chinese food, and I thought she was the strongest female contender. If I'm being honest, I did not think she was going to win, but she was the one that I was really rooting for. Not the one, but one of the ones I was really rooting for. And what I like about her is she's just no frills, no nonsense, get to the point, let's cook. Really hardworking, and she's very competent, and so yeah, it's just love that trait for her. Next is Triple Star, and he's everyone's favorite because man is really hot. Like that is an attractive man right there. And so for Triple Star, obviously he's kind of given main character energy even from the beginning. He was like the way he was even edited, everyone was like, oh, he's one to look out for. If you look at his cuts for like his knife skills, like bro, they are so even. Yes, but not only is he very attractive, he is very good at cooking. 11 out of 15 people vote for him to be first. So life is unfair. He's good at cooking and he's good looking. But anyways, what's interesting about him is he actually also worked with An Sung-jae before at the same restaurant. So yeah, he's kind of one of An Sung-jae's students, and he's just, he's so good at what he does. Like, man can cook. But anyways, he won us all over with his leadership skills. Again, he was leader twice in the restaurant business one, and then for Team Black Spoon, Team Meat specifically. And yeah, he just really won us over. He was really good about gathering everyone's ideas and just making decisions. He was a confident, but he was also a quiet, gentle leader. And yeah, he's just so attractive. But okay, next is Edward Lee. I love this man. He just seems so genuine. He just seemed like such a cool ajashi. He called himself old too when he was doing the whole like life meal. And to be honest, I just love how much he loves food. Really wants to make Korean food accessible to the general public, which is why he makes the fusion. I love that he's very clear in his beliefs. He's very competent and good at what he does, and he's not stubborn at all, because this shows a little bit during the Team Black Spoon versus Team White Spoon. He does not agree with the head chef, but ultimately he put his head down and he was like, no, we'll just do it. This is what the man's saying. Man's in charge. We just have to trust him and do it. And so, yeah, that's what he did. And obviously they ended up winning. Also, I love how creative he was with all of his dishes. I feel like some of the other people, especially the ones that did just pasta, no offense, but it's just kind of, it gets a little tiring. And how can you really evaluate your cooking skills when you specialize in this one thing and you don't seem to cook anything else? Edward Lee was a jack of all trades. Was a master of all trades. Is that whatever the saying is, but he is so good at what he does. I love that he's constantly challenging himself, because I feel like this is just so much room for growth. Even though he's so experienced and so accomplished already, he keeps growing, and that's honestly such an admirable trait of his. So yeah, he's just a sweet Ajashi given vibes, and so we love him for that. And lastly, we have the person who I actually really wanted to win, and that is Choi Hyun-suk. He took a leadership position within the White Spoons, and I think this already went to show something, because like, if you're taking, some leaders sucked, so I guess it doesn't count for everything, but Choi Hyun-suk did a good job, and I think the way he speaks, he's just so good at it, and it's very clear that he has his own beliefs and values. I think this showed in the 1v1 Black versus White Spoon competition. He has a reason for what he's doing, and he has his ways, and even if it's not the one that works for everyone, he knows that that's what it is for himself. And I really respect someone that has those kind of values and knows themselves like that. So yeah, he has a very distinct identity as a chef, and I think that's really cool. And yeah, he's obviously a great leader. He's a very intelligent dude. He really won me over in the restaurant mission, because when he was talking about everything, I was like, bro, you know your stuff. Like I really love that you know your stuff. And yeah, intelligence is great. He was very experienced.
가격대가 되게 중요할 거거든요. 이렇게 생각하시면 돼요. 특수한 상품이 여기가 엄청 특수한 상품이에요. 시스템이 푸드코트처럼 보이는데 여기 저기 오는 사람들은 돈을 주기 때문에 가깝으로 15만 원, 20만 원 쓸 수 있는 사람이 있는 거라고 보시면 될 것 같아요. 그죠?
And I was rooting for him, but obviously he didn't even make it to the semifinalists. So yeah. So real quick, we will talk about the pros and the cons. So for the pros, whoever came up with the concepts did a really good job. Like every mission was pretty good, except I would say the Cook Your Life one and the final round, I thought it was just super anticlimactic. But if I'm being honest, this happens a lot in shows, because I also watched The Devil's Plan, and I'd say the last round was also very anticlimactic. But yeah, I think the missions in general were really great, and they tested a lot of different things that I actually think were relevant to cooking. Sometimes shows, okay, like Physical 100 is one that comes to mind. Some of them don't actually test your strength. Some of them are just stupid. But with the cooking ones, I thought every single round tested skills that you actually need as a chef. Like, obviously, fine dining chefs don't really have to mass prep food as much, but it is a skill to be able to get the right flavor for 100 portions, you know? And what else? The restaurant one, I think it's important to know how to sell your food. There's a lot of different aspects to being a chef, and you need them all to be a good one. So as I mentioned earlier, the restaurant one was my favorite concept, and the reason why is because of how many different elements it incorporated into running a business, which is obviously very relevant to chefs, because a lot of them want to start their own restaurants, you know? So it was the details, like looking at leftovers to see what customers liked and don't like and adjust accordingly. Chung In-sun, the queen of dim sum, did this, which I thought was really cool. And even Pick Jong-won did this. He literally went over and ate someone's leftovers and was like, this meat is way too chewy.
와, 몇 먹방들인데 고기를 남길 리 없잖아, 그렇죠? 웬만하면 질겨, 많이 질겨. 그리고 고기하는데 잘못 선택하는 거 너무 질겨. 양념 참 맛있는데 소스도 맛있고 소스 맛있고 밑간도 잘 되고 근데 고기 자체가 질기네.
Yeah, ultimately they fell probably from what they could have been second to third, because they messed up on the steaks and less influencers ordered them. Influencers, mukbangers, you know. And then another aspect was considering the photos that you need, because the mukbangers had to order off a kiosk and then they had photos inserted, and obviously nicer photos in the beginning did really well, because they're like, oh, this looks yummy.
사진이 맛있어 보여야 되는데
장하는 식당이 사진 제일 예뻐.
맞아요. 맞아요.
이거 팩이 맛있었던 거고 이건 좀 너무 과한 거 같아. 사진을 너무 찍어서 아니 메뉴 중에 제일 비싼 이게
And yeah, ultimately you don't want to rely on just the food itself because Choi Hyun-suk took the pictures and he's an ajashi. And so yeah, he's an old man who doesn't know how to use phones. So he took the ugliest pictures even though his menu was like pretty fire, you know? Considering prices and just the game you're playing, I think that's just super intelligent of Choi Hyun-suk, and that's really where he won me over. There will always be different scenarios in which you need to price things, and knowing how to do that I do think is a valuable skill that a chef should know. And so obviously Choi Hyun-suk knew how to do that. He led his team to victory. And it was so funny to see. It was so interesting to see just all these aspects at play and to see how everyone works through them and it comes up with different answers. Obviously, some are better and some are not. And then another reason I really love the show, I mentioned earlier, but I just loved seeing the passion for cooking. Every single person had love for cooking, and I think cooking is just one of those things you just don't do for the money. And yeah, so every single one of them, I genuinely trust that they love cooking. They aren't there for fame. They aren't there for clout. They aren't there for money. Maybe they are because the prize of 200,000 is nice. But yeah, it was just really cool to see so many people so passionate about this one thing. And honestly, I feel that a little bit as someone who's also pursuing my own dreams. Like, yeah, doing this entire thing, this is all the passion, you know? And seeing other people passionate about things and working hard, especially when things don't pay off, like right now for me. But yeah, it eventually does pay off in the end, and yeah, just really relate to that message, really hit me, you know? So lastly, for a pro, this show was actually so funny. I was cackling at the garlic moment.
마늘을 빼먹었습니다. 봉골레 마늘을 빼먹는 건 떡볶이에 고춧가루 빼먹는 거랑 똑같은 거거든요.
There is a separate Baek Jong-won and Choi Hyun-suk video. Obviously, they're both in the industry, so they know each other and they're friends. And he just blames himself so much for it. There's also just so many characters. In the first round, you remember the 80 people? They were just characters. There was this one dude making a bibimbap song. And yeah, so it reminded me a lot of Show Me the Money with characters, again, people trying to stand out. But it was funny to watch. There's pretty good comedic timing, like Napoli Mafia. I thought it was so funny. He put the wine bottle of his last dish on the table with his food, but there was no wine in the bottle.
소스에 불어난다는 의미를 담아서 1995년에 발효로 소스를 만들어서 같이 배달했습니다. 이탈리아 그 잡채다. 와인도 먹으라고? 와인은 다 먹었습니다. 소스에 남은
So yeah, there were just some really funny moments at times, and appreciated that. And so for the cons, again, I'd said that final is very anticlimactic. I feel like that's just such a big deal, you know? Again, an issue with the format. This has to go into the final, the winner. So I didn't really want Napoli Mafia to win, and I don't think it's a reflection of him, but a reflection of the production team that allowed him to win. Again, Napoli Mafia specializes in Italian food, and also he won even though he was like on the border every single time, because if you remember, I said he was one of the people on hold that got to move on. He went to the what's it called, Consolation Match following that, following the Team Black Spoon versus Team White Spoon thing, and he got first place in that, which obviously did a great job. He then again got saved during the restaurant mission, so man was on the edge every single time. And then also he didn't have to do the cooking hell challenge because again, he is an Italian chef that specializes in one thing. How the hell is he gonna make 6 different pasta recipes with tofu, you know? So honestly, if he had been in that mission, I do not think he'd pass and been our winner. And also, just the narrative of the entire story, I feel like they set up a pretty good narrative for Choi Hyun-suk versus Triple Spoon. Again, Triple Spoon is the black spoon chef, and Choi Hyun-suk is a white spoon. So again, you still have this black and white spoon thing going on. Instead, you got that with Napoli Mafia and Edward Lee. Edward Lee is great. Edward Lee was one of the people I thought should have been one of the top 3, top 4 people, but I didn't expect him to be the finalist. And within them too, it's also a little funny because Edward Lee is Korean American. And so this is a Korean show. It wouldn't have looked good on the production team if he won. So yeah, that's just my little 2 cents. The production team just should have set up better so that we were able to get the story we wanted. Obviously, Choi Hyun-suk made a mistake. If Choi Hyun-suk had not missed his garlic, there's good odds it would have been Choi Hyun-suk versus Triple Star, or at least Edward Lee, and that still would have made better. The reality is what it is, would have been even better. And you know, they're coming out with a season 2, so I will actually be watching that one as it airs. So yeah, overall, it was a very enjoyable show. I know I make food content, but I am usually not interested in cooking shows simply because it makes me really, really hungry. And I do not have the money to be making all this food a lot of the times. Like, a lot of the stuff I make is pretty easy, college friendly, budget friendly meals. There is one thing I'm gonna try, and it's gonna be Choi Hyun-suk's vongole pasta, because that shouldn't be too hard. The only thing is I still have to go buy clams, and when am I buying clams? I'm not that rich to be buying clams, but otherwise it's a very easy recipe that he didn't post the exact ingredients and measurements for, so I'm just gonna have to wing it, which I'm not very happy about. And so next week, I hope to go back to dramas. I still have to do my Love Next Door review. And just so you know, it's not a very happy one, but I do have a lot to say on it. So it's going to be a long video, just like this one, because yeah, there's just a lot to go through. And on that note, that wraps up this video. Let me know your thoughts on Culinary Class Wars if you watched it. And thank you for watching.